Om Shanti. Let's sit and reflect for some time in the beginning. As I sit still and quiet, I become aware that the world around me feels like a storm these days. Everything seems to be uncertain and unstable. But now I know the way to the eye of the storm. I am the eye of the storm. I, the soul, am the central point of my whole universe, and the center, this eye, is very still, absolutely calm and peaceful. I know my way to myself now. There is turbulence outside, but I always move my awareness to this eye, to this one within, the spirit, the soul that is completely calm, absolutely still, very peaceful. Gently unplug your attention from the storm and bring it to the eye, the still, silent one within. The pure point of energy sitting in peace within. This is my core nature. This is who I am. This is how it feels like to be connected to myself. Let your awareness stay there. Spend a few moments in this beautiful state. Om Shanti. So, whenever there is a storm, then people who sail often in the sea, they know that when there is a storm in the sea, there is always a central point in that storm which is absolutely still. And those people who know how to maneuver their ships to that central point are often saved in the storm. So, similarly, when there is so much turbulence outside, so much of chaos outside, now God is teaching us the way to go within and anchor ourselves, connect ourselves with that point of peace that stays within. And as we do that, there will be turbulence outside, and there is nothing we can do about it, but we will be saved from the effect of that turbulence. We will stay connected with the peace within, and we will not feel chaotic or turbulent. Now, you see, there is this thing that anything on the external world finds way into my internal world through my mind. So my mind is the interface of the external and the internal. So it is my mind that makes things on the external find a way into my internal world, and from there into my destiny or into my life. Now, the mind right now is connected to the world outside because the mind is always connected to the sense organs. So, anything you are seeing, hearing, touching, any environment you are in, smells, sights, they are finding a way into your internal world through your mind. Now, if I keep my mind anchored into my being, like I just connect my mind with my internal state, I let my mind dwell on my peaceful state, then things outside will not easily find a way inside. They will have a filter through which they will have to pass. Or if I stay in awareness and I select what needs to go within, what doesn't need to go within. So these capacities have to be exercised so that the external world doesn't find too much of way into the internal world. Now, before I talk about these things, let us pay attention to the fact that we are exposing ourselves to too much information of the turbulence and chaos outside. So it's not that it's not just what we are subjected to on a personal level, but otherwise also we switch on the TV, we switch on the internet, we are making our mind we are bringing our mind in contact with the turbulence that is happening in every part of the world, every corner of the world. So even if I'm not directly connected with something, I'm switching on the TV or the internet, or even fake emotions like those the internet series and whatever you watch, they are creating some emotional stuff, and you are also connecting your mind to that. And you see how much of chaotic and turbulent emotions you are subjecting your mind to. By this is what we do consciously. And then to talk about the unconscious, so if you understand, even if you meet somebody or you are in a certain place, even if you are not very consciously taking that in, the vibrations of that place or that environment find a way into you through your mind. So all these are there. So even the mind is not only taking in the conscious thoughts and sights and sounds, but also the vibrations. So unconscious, so we can't avoid these things. You will be in an environment, and the negativity of that environment or the people you are directly in contact with, those will find a way into your mind up to some extent. But let us not expose ourselves unnecessarily to things that can be avoided. So, this is why we need to exercise discretion in what we watch, what we hear, what we, the places we visit or the people we are engaging with. So, we have to exercise discretion in that. So, there is a very beautiful saying, watch what you watch. Yes, so we need to watch what we watch, because what we watch is getting, finding a way into our internal world, and that is influencing our state of mind, our state of awareness, our state of decision making, our state of feelings, everything. So, have you heard of that iceberg? So, the iceberg, when you see the iceberg, a very little part of it is above the water and is visible, but then a major part of it is, down the water and you can't see it. But that is where the whole problem lies. So, we also have a very big subconscious realm. So, the sanskars or the memory track, the chit that we have, the soul has this memory track called the chit or the sanskars, which have an impact on the chit. So, all these things are getting filled with the stuff that you're watching and hearing, and this chit has an influence on whatever you are experiencing in terms of thoughts and feelings. So, let us pay a little attention to what we are filling ourselves with. So we are not in a very good position to control the unconscious part. Like, if you are in a situation, so what are you feeling, or the vibrations you are experiencing, or generally the environment, you don't have much control over that. But we certainly have a lot of control over some things, like deliberate watching, deliberate listening to stuff. So we need to exercise some discretion in that. And even if it is true, so sometimes you want to know all the news because that is what is going on around you. But the thing is, even if that is what is going on in the world, you don't want it go on in your mind, because your mind needs to be a sacred place. And if you don't have anything to do with it directly, you should sift that information and not take in too much of information inside, because this is something that we need to do for ourselves. Nowadays, information is something that everybody likes to have a lot. But then I think that we need to be really careful about what information needs to be taken in and what doesn't need to be taken in. And let me tell you my experience. I have not read a newspaper or watched news for 12 years. But it's not that I'm not informed, because even if you don't watch anything consciously, you will get so much of information anyway. So everybody around you is talking about it and thinking about it. So that will find so much of place into you by anyway. So if you are consciously not choosing to take in information, also you will get a lot of it. And then if you go and consciously have it, then you will have too much of it. So I would request you to watch what you watch what you hear, because that is finding a way into our subconscious, and that is affecting how we feel. Because you see, if you ask yourself, why are you feeling the way you are feeling these days? It's not because what you are experiencing firsthand around you. it's generally because of what is coming second hand to you. So whatever is being communicated to you through other means is what is making you feel very restless, or feeling fearful or anxious or stressed. So it is this extra information that needs to be not taken. So I sometimes think about this, that people say we need to do meditation and we want to do meditation, but then we need to also stop doing what we shouldn't do. So, yes, we need to do what we need to do. Meditation is one of that, but then you also need to stop doing what is not good for you, because if you continue doing that and then you are meditating and attending this class, then this is like filling a bucket with a tap on, like it's filling it from above, but then there is a big hole and all the water is getting drained out from below. So this is something that is going on. So you listen to this 1 hour of class, but instead of sleeping on this, what you do is you fill your brains and your minds with other stuff by watching 23 hours of television or internet or WhatsApp or Facebook or something, and then this has no impact in your life if you do that. So we need also to understand that abstinence is equally important. If you don't abstain from these engagements and indulgences, that even this very fruitful and very powerful exercise that you are doing here, attending this class with spiritual knowledge and spiritual power, will not do much good. Because I was when I was in school, so I had a friend, and I was at her place one day, and there was this person selling Aquaguard. So at that time, these water purifying machines were not in fashion. So that was one of the first Aquaguard machines that he brought. And then the salesman tried to convince my friend's father that you should buy an Aquaguard for yourself. And then my friend's father said, so if my daughter drinks 23 glasses of Aquaguard water, and then she puts in 1 glass of pani puri ka pani, so which one is more effective? So can you promise that she won't fall ill if she does just drinks 1 glass of pani puri water and then she has 23 glasses of Aquaguard water? So the salesman said, no, that's not possible. You don't have to drink anything else if you drink this. So he said, then I will call you when I can convince my daughter not to go and have that pani puri. So so this is what is happening. So people will complain after so many years of engaging in spiritual practice that I have not moved ahead. So it's because of that 1 glass of pani puri water that you are every day putting in. And it is the opposite. So 1 hour of spiritual study and 23 hours of I don't know what you study otherwise. So this is something, and everything is study, because anything that you see, hear, talk about, think about is affecting your mind. We can't say that this is having an impact and that is not having an impact. If 1 hour of spiritual study is having an impact, then definitely the other 23 hours are also having an impact. So we need to check what we do in the rest of the time. And about meditation, I would like to talk to you about it today. So we are doing these short meditations where we are practicing soul consciousness. We are practicing that I am a pure being, peaceful being, and we are connecting with our peace and purity and our core qualities and dwelling on them for some time. And we will also start talking about God and about how to connect with God and all that. But what is the ideal time to practice these? So the ideal time to practice this is early morning. So, and the precise time is 4 to 4:45 in the morning. Okay, so whatever time zone you are in, so 4 to 4:45 in the morning is called the Brahma Muhurat or the Amrit Vela. And any yogi, so I yesterday I think I shared with you or in some other class that as a discipline we get up in the center, we all the sisters and brothers that live in the center get up at 3:30 in the morning, definitely every day. And this is something that every yogi practices. Why? Because that 4 to 4:45 in the morning is such a time when your external environment is very very free, and it is not loaded with negativity. So if you want to go far, so let's say you want to drive some 250 kilometers today, so when do you start? You start when there is least traffic, right? You want to hit the road when there is least traffic so that you can reach fast. Similarly, whatever time zone you are in, 4 to 4:45 in the morning is a time when most people are sleeping. So the people who sleep late are also sleeping. The people who wake up early also wake up at around 5. So from 4 to 5 is a time when most people are sleeping. And that is why the environment around you is not loaded with the thoughts of those people. So the mental traffic, or the traffic of thoughts, is least in the environment. And then when you get up at that time and you try to connect with yourself, there is least resistance. And also, when you get up early in the morning, then your subconscious mind is open. So because you have been so when you sleep, you create a pathway from the conscious to the subconscious, so you get these dreams and stuff which you don't get during the day. So why do you get them? Because they are part of the subconscious, and when you sleep, you have access to the subconscious, and your subconscious mind gets open. Now, when you get up, as soon as you get up, your subconscious mind is active. And then, when you consciously think about these positive, powerful, purposeful thoughts, then they find a way into the subconscious directly. So, you know how it is? It is like when you go to a doctor and that doctor gives you a tablet or he gives you an injection. So, if he gives you a tablet, the tablet has to find a way into your system after digestion. So, it has to go through the whole digestive process and then it finds a way into the system. But then when there is an injection, it is directly injected into the blood system or the nervous system or whatever. So this is like direct injection. So when you sit, when you meditate during the day, you will consciously think, and those thoughts finding a way from your conscious mind to your subconscious mind, it will be a lengthy process. But when you meditate early in the morning, as soon as you get up, then your subconscious mind is open, and whatever you think will become a part of your thought process very easily. A very good example of this is, have you noticed that if someday you get up and then you see that there is a song playing around you or there's some music, and then all day you are unconsciously reminded of that song, and then you keep asking yourself, why am I singing this song since morning today? Because as soon as you got up, that is the song which went into your subconscious mind. So whatever goes into your subconscious resonates very often during the day. So that is the time to meditate. Now, if I ask you that, if I tell you that this is the only time to meditate and you can't meditate at any other time, so that is not true also. And I don't expect you to get up tomorrow at 4, although if you did, you would get the maximum advantage. But if, for example, you are not able to, then what do? Is You start by getting up 15 to 20 minutes earlier than your usual time. So if you are getting up at 6 in the morning every day, try getting up at 5:30. If you are getting up at 5 every day, then try getting up at 4:30, so that you can meditate for some time before you start your day. Now, if you try to meditate after getting up at your usual time, then there'll be other stuff that will try to vie for your attention, because though that work or those people who are waiting for you to get up will be sending thoughts to you, and they will try to pull your attention, and it will become very difficult to sit and practice meditation. So you have to find a time when nothing else is pulling your attention, and that is usually half an hour before your usual getting up time. But you must note here that the environment will not support you if you get up half an hour before your usual time. You will have the advantage of an open subconscious mind. You will have the advantage of nothing pulling your attention. But the ideal environment for meditation exists at 4 in the morning. And believe me, I have tried meditating at every time of the day, because it's been a long journey, and you meditate at some time sometimes, and then at other times at other times. But then what I have figured out from experience is 4 to 4:45 in the morning is a very, very conducive environment, not just theoretically, but I'm sharing it from experience. And when you do that, you will realize that this thing about the mental traffic being the least is very true, and you will have a glimpse of how easy it is to connect with yourself at that time during the day. Now, what about sleep? So, you will have thoughts about we will feel sleepy, or I don't get up usually at that time, so I would tend to fall asleep. So you should know that it's not the sleep, it's your idea that you have to sleep until this time, which will cause you more trouble than the sleep actually. So let me give you a very good experience about this. So there was this one brother, and he was sharing with me that, Didi, I take anxiety pills every day. And then before I go to sleep, I pop a pill in my mouth, and then I sleep well. And then next day I'm active and I go for work. Now, one day it so happened that I slept well. I woke up and I was getting ready for work, and I was feeling absolutely fine. And then my son came and he told me, Papa, did you forget your anxiety pill yesterday? So I said, no, I had it before I went to sleep. Then my son picked it up from the carpet, and he said that probably when you were popping it inside, it fell on the carpet and you didn't take your pill yesterday. And then he said, suddenly I felt like I didn't had a good sleep, and that I was feeling very fatigued, and that I should go back to sleep, and I won't be able to work all day because I have skipped my pill yesterday. And then he said, I couldn't work, and I went and took that pill and slept. So, do you understand that there is a lot of psychological aspect to our feelings? So, when you feel sleepy, when you feel anxious, it is not just what you feel practically, it's also your mindset that you are anxious or you are sleepy. So, have you experienced that as children? Sometimes you wanted to skip school, and then what you did is you told yourself and others that I'm not well, and I'm having this stomach ache and this headache, and my body is not agreeing to go to school and stuff. And then other people said, okay, you can sit and have a good day, have a holiday. And then when you were at home, actually you started having a stomach ache or a headache. So this is something that we have experienced. I have experienced fever also like that. So, I have fever, and then I have a fever actually. So you see that there is a lot of impact of our thoughts on how we feel, or our physical condition, or the situation around us. So you must also understand that it's not just the sleep, it's about your idea of sleep also. So sometimes we are very fixated with this idea that we need 8 hours of sleep or 6 hours of sleep. And let me tell you, I have spent months together having approximately 5 hours of sleep every day, and there has been no difference in the way, in the proficiency of work or anything. And even if I didn't get a break or sleep additionally for 2 to 3 hours, I could go on working very nicely and having the best performance by sleeping 5 hours a day for around 6 months at a stretch, or 1 year at a stretch, not having one day of break also. So I'm telling this from experience that sleep is very, very psychological. So if you tell yourself that 6 hours of sleep is good enough, it is good enough. And if you tell yourself, no, if I haven't had 8, then I won't be functioning properly, then you won't be, because whatever you say will hold true for you. So everything that you create is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So whatever we say carries a tathastu after it. So if you say, I will feel sleepy, so the universe says tathastu, yes, go and feel sleepy. If you say, how can I feel sleepy? I am fine, perfectly okay, then the universe supports your thought and you feel okay. So, whatever you say for yourself will be a self fulfilling prophecy. So, you have to rise above this idea first that 6 or 6:30 or 7 is the ideal time to get up. You have to know that 4 a.m. is the ideal time to get up. And if you get up at 4, and if you meditate for 45 minutes, if you just sit and try connecting with yourself for 45 minutes, then you will see you will have so much energy that you will do half the work that you do during the day in the next 2 hours. And I tell you, the most productive hours are after meditation. So I finish major part of my whole day's work up to 7:30 before I come to this class. So this is why you should know that all this is psychological more and real less. And if you just train yourself to think like that, you will be in a better position. So just try telling yourself that 4 a.m. is the ideal time to get up, and I can and I will get up at 4 and sit with myself for some time. Just go within, sit with yourself, see how peaceful you are, how pure you are, how blissful you are. There are various meditation commentaries on YouTube. I will send some commentary links to you. You can play them while you sit. If you are not able to consciously create thoughts, that's okay. You can play those commentaries and try creating thoughts along with those commentaries. So I will send you some links today and you can meditate with those commentaries. So this is something about meditation, and when you do that as a foundation for the day, then you just have to take care to retain that peaceful state as you move along the day. And then before you go to bed at night, what you do is you empty yourself. So you see, we have a lot of thoughts going on in our minds when we are going to bed. So there are things that we are feeling guilty about, repenting, or feeling miserable about, or feeling anxious about. There are lots of stuff. So if there is something that you're thinking about over which you have control, then plan what you need to do next, and then put a full stop to that overthinking before you go to bed. So let's say you are worried about your child making friends with somebody you don't like, then you devise some method by which you can make your child understand that this is not where he should go, and then put a full stop to that worry. Because when you have open ended thoughts to which there is no solution, then your mind just goes in a spree. So thoughts about how, what, when, how will I manage, or thoughts based on worry and fear, these are very open ended, and then your mind doesn't stop all night if you sleep with those thoughts. So if there is something that you can come up with a solution for, you do that when before going to sleep. Give your mind a solution and then put your thoughts to rest. If there is something that is not in your control, okay, so there are many things that are not in our control, we really don't know how to manage them or how to work with them, then you give it to God. Do you know how to give it to God? Do you know this? There is this ability to surrender. So, do you know how to surrender when you can't take care of something? How many of you can surrender? How many of you know how to surrender? Yes, so surrender is a very beautiful ability of the soul. And you shouldn't surrender where it is for you to take action. So wherever there is a situation where you need to act, like I need to conduct this class, and if I say, God, I surrender, I will keep quiet and you talk, so that won't work. But then I know that I might not be in a position to answer all your questions or read your minds or know whatever is going on inside your mind. So I surrender that bit. So I say, God, I surrender to you. You give me the idea or the help whenever I fall short, and the rest I will do. So I will talk, you talk through me, I will share, you share what they need. I will give the I will use the mouth, you use my mind and give me the content which I want to speak. So you have to do your bit, and there is a lot that you can't take care of, and there that is it is that you need to surrender. And this is why there is this thing that I'm talking about, having a relationship with God. So, yesterday also I talked about having a relationship with God. So, I was thinking about this in my morning meditation today, that basically we are not in control of many things today, and there is basically no support that you can rely on today. So, do you think there is any support which you can actually fall back on all the time and that will never fail you? Is there any support that you can always fall back on and they will never fail you? Is there any person? Is there anything? Is even your body, you don't know when it will just betray you and not be according to you when you need it the most. So you have to do a lot and then your body is unwell that day. So there is nothing that you can actually fall back upon or bank upon right now. So we are living in times when everything has a possibility to fail us. Every person around me, every thing around me, all that I have acquired, my own body, they all have the possibility, capacity, and probability of failing me. So then, who is it that I take support from? So then we go to God. So, we say ultimately it is God. But then why do we say it is ultimately God? Why is it not first God? So why do you want to go to God ultimately? Why don't you go to God every second? Yes, can't we go to God every time? Why do we have to go to God ultimately? So, there is this episode in the Gita, and it is said that when Draupadi was going through that troubled time, so Draupadi pleaded to everyone in the court, and she pleaded to her husbands, the people around who were, the great ones, so the Bhishma Pitama, the Dronacharya. She pleaded to everybody in the court, and it is only at the end that she turned her attention to Shri Krishna. And then when Uddhav, so there is a very good chapter where Uddhav asks God, or God is depicted to be Shri Krishna in Gita. So Uddhav asks Shri Krishna that why didn't you go and help Draupadi in the first instance? So why did you wait until the end? So Shri Krishna said, no, I didn't wait until the end. She waited until the end. She didn't ask me for support all the while. She pleaded to everybody, and then she came to me. So I helped as soon as she came to me. So there is this thing about having a relationship with God, and when you know that nothing else can support you, why do you keep knocking at everybody's door, and why do you why do you wait until you are torn with disappointment and then you go to God? So why do you allow everybody to disappoint you before you go to God? Why can't we first go to God? Yes, why can't we first go to God? You know why we first don't go to God? Because we are trained to go to people, we are trained to go to material things, and we are trained to seek support in all of this. And also because we don't have a relationship with God. So we don't have enough confidence that God will help me. And why don't you have confidence that God will help you? Because you have not built that relationship. So you see, if, for example, I send you messages 50 times, let's say. So maybe I sent you a message yesterday and the day before and the third day, and then you never responded. You never responded to whatever I sent. If you never responded, will you ever find the confidence to come and talk to me in times of need? No. But if you always responded, you will have the confidence that I can talk to Didi. We have a relationship. Yes, so reciprocity builds a relationship. So if you reciprocate, there will be a relationship. Now, how many times do we try to know God, or we try to build a relationship with God, or try to know what He wants me to do in this situation? We always listen to people. All our fidelities, all our all our relationships, all our allegiances are with people. So we are forging all relationships people, so we go to them because we are confident that I have done something for this person, or I have done as he said, or I have obeyed his directions, or I have invested in this person. So yes, this person is bound to help me now, but he is a human being and he fails you at that time. But then if you did the same thing with God, he will not fail you because he is God. At least he reciprocates. He doesn't betray you. So why not have a relationship with God? And you know why we don't want to have a relationship with God? Because we think I am a body and God doesn't have a body. So how do I connect with somebody who doesn't have a body? Or somebody who is not physically present around me. So we have this fixation with physical presence. So we think all that is physical is real. But in fact, if you see, is what you are dealing with physical or non-physical? So you and I talking to each other. So I am also talking to the ones who are sitting with closed cameras. So who am I talking to? I can't see those ones, but I'm still talking to them, right? So are you talking to the physical when you are talking? You are talking to the one sitting in the physical, right? So I know that there is a body sitting behind that camera, and then there is a consciousness sitting in that body, and I'm talking to that one. Am I not? And who are you talking to? If I sit with my camera closed also, you will know that Didi is sitting. And if I say, I'm switching off my camera, you switch off your camera and let me meditate here and you meditate there, you will know that Didi is sitting and Didi is meditating with me, and you can be connected with me and meditate with me. Can you not? So basically, we are all non-physical. So the soul is non-physical. You are a point of consciousness engaging with another point of consciousness. But we have this fixation with physicality, which we are not willing and able to overcome. And now, if you try and if you put this in your awareness that all that we can't see is what is true and what we see is just a cover. So you are actually, when you are talking to a soul, so have you seen that thoughts reach the person you send it to? So when you are thinking about your child who is sitting miles away, do you sometimes feel that your child knows that you're thinking about him? You get the message, and sometimes, they also call and they tell you that, what are you thinking about me? Yes. So or sometimes you are looking for a friend and you are remembering that friend. I had this friend 10 years ago and I lost touch with that friend. I don't know where to find them, and they send you a friend request. And you say, how did you start looking for me? They said, I started looking for you some days back. And you say, exactly, I also started looking for you some days back. So this is how we communicate. We are all communicating soul to soul. It's not the body. The body is just the illusion. So similarly, God is also there with you. You can communicate with God. You can listen to God. And right now, whatever you are listening to is something that God spoke with the mouth. How He did that, we will let you know. But you should know that God came, God taught us about Him so that we can also overcome this physical. So God came into the physical, told about Himself so that we can transcend this physicality and connect with the non-physical one. So you should know that God is listening, and just ask yourself before doing anything, would God like it if you did it this way? Would it be good for your relationship with God if you did this thing this way? So we all know how God would want us to be. So would God like you to hurry and worry if you are getting late? So what if God was sitting beside you while you were driving the car and were creating thoughts of hurry and worry? What would God tell you? He would say, please slow down, don't hurry, don't worry, you will reach in time. So if you just visualized God with you all the time and asked yourself, what would God tell me if He was here with me in this situation? So what would God tell me if He was present with me as a friend right now or as a parent right now? Then you will know the answer, because you know God very well, don't you? So you intuitively know Him. And if you just asked what He would think like or what He would tell you if He were there with you in this time, then you will get the answer. And if you did as you thought He would tell you, then you are forging a relationship with God. So, would God like it if you sat for a few minutes with yourself every day in the beginning of the day? He would like it very much. And if you did that, you are building a relationship with God, because God teaches you good karma. So God will never tell you something that is bad karma. So God and karma are related, and God is the knowledgeful of good karma, and God is the one who wants you to do good karma. So whenever you think about your karma, you think about God also, because God and karma is inseparable. God gives you the theory of karma, God tells you about karma. I will give you a lot of detail about what God is, who God is, sorry, not what God is, who God is, what He says, what He does, what He believes, what He talks about karma. But first, you need to think about this need for a relationship with God in these times when everything else is and is going to fail you eventually. Okay. Om Shanti. Let's take the questions which are there and then we will meditate. Okay, so how to abstain when Maya attracts? I have not talked about Maya, so I don't know where your question is coming from. In previous lecture, you told that most of the fears are not actual. Actually, I stay with my mother and I'm single, so I get worried when I think of her death, as we have no one else in the family. Now, how to overcome this fear, as sooner or later she will die. So, you better start building your relationship with God, because everybody will eventually die. Your body will also leave you, but you have to continue forever. So, you have to build a relationship with the one who is forever. So, I think I answered your question in the session. So, when can we do physical exercise in the morning, before meditation or after after meditation is a good time, not before meditation. So, we would like, so you sit in meditation as soon as you can after you get up, not you don't delay it, because of, you are in touch with that whole subconscious realm when you get up. So you don't delay your sitting in meditation. You just wash your face so that it gives you a little freshness, and then you sit. Okay. Om Shanti. Didi, can we sleep again after meditation in the morning? I was waiting for this question, I think. So, so, uh, okay, you can. It's, so there are no rules about it, but share your experience with me if you sleep after that. And your experience is not going to be a very nice one, because if you sleep after meditation, you generally get very bad dreams. So that's because your subconscious has become very active, and then it gives you bad dreams. So it's not a good idea to sleep after meditation, but it's not like you can't sleep. Okay, so that is also there. So if you can't help it, sleep, but at least get up. But then you will struggle with it, and you will leave sleeping once you get these bizarre dreams after meditation. Okay, let's meditate for some time. Sit still and quiet, and slowly become aware of all that is invisible but real. Become aware of you, the soul, in the body. Become aware of everyone as a soul around you. So, what you can see are the bodies, but those bodies are being run by the souls you can't see. You can see things around you, phenomena around you, but everything also has a vibration. Become aware of the subtle vibrations around you. Most of what is real is not visible. Now become aware of God, the ocean of love, who is with you, forming a canopy around you. You are under his canopy. This canopy is subtle energy in the form of white light all around you, holding you, embracing you. God loves me unconditionally. I belong to him always. He is my eternal companion, my eternal support. Sit in the awareness of his companionship for a few minutes. Shanti.